Good afternoon, and I want to welcome Chief Baston, Commissioner Mason, and several council members who are here with me today. In a few minutes, I will sign an executive order that will temporarily allow police officers to drive their cruisers for personal use at no cost to them until I can verify the unusual level of violence we have experienced recently has subsided. I will not let $50, the cost of a tank of gas, get in the way of public safety. Let me say that again. I will not let $50, the cost of a tank of gas, get in the way of public safety. As mayor, I have said that I will dedicate all available resources to fight violence, and that includes making sure we maximize police presence across the city. I will not play games with public safety. I am getting the cruisers on the streets. The city has been negotiating with the police union for 6 months to revise the personal use benefit, which allows officers to drive their cruisers on personal errands within Fayette County. This benefit was suspended in a contract the city signed in 2012 with the union. We were cutting costs across government in order to live within our means during a great recession. During the negotiations, police union negotiators were given several cost-cutting options. One of the options they chose was the personal use benefit of the cruisers. 6 months ago, the city and the union reopened negotiations on the benefit change. The police union asked us to reconsider, and the benefit was not as costly as was originally estimated. So we worked together on a plan that would require officers to just cover the cost of gas. Earlier this month, union leadership agreed to a $50 monthly charge for officers who want the benefit, pending a vote by union members. That vote, scheduled this week, was stopped by union leaders on Wednesday. Now, police officers have repeatedly said the personal use policy enhances public safety because it increases the visibility of police. In a time when we have a surge in violence, union officials will need to explain to the public why they would not allow this, why they would get in the way of adjusting this policy in a responsible way. There's too much at stake. Now, I'll take questions. The chief is here as well, and we'll take questions anyone has.
So it's temporary. Do you know how long?
We'll work with the chief to determine that. It's an appropriate time that we can examine. But what we have said is that during this period, when a level of anxiety may be greater, especially among our citizens, that we need to do all we can to illustrate the presence and police presence in our city. I'll ask the chief if he wants to comment on that, as well as other questions. Chief, you want to add to
I don't think so.
that? Okay. Yes. It depends on how many officers would take the option. But today, what we are saying through this action is that there will be no charge and the cruisers will be allowed to be used by the officers. Pardon? Well, that number depends on how many officers. It could be, if 200, you can do the math, but we'll give you that math. But $50 a month, $600 a year, so it depends on how many officers would take the option.
Why shouldn't police pay $50?
Well, this is those are some of the issues that were part of the negotiations for the last 6 months. And my responsibility as mayor is to first do all we can to ensure public safety and to be fair and responsible to our taxpayers. That's my job as mayor. That's our job as leaders and members of the council as well. So we're always navigating that balance. Always navigating that balance.
Does this mean the city and the FOP have mended fences over the statement they felt was misleading?
I'm sorry, ask again. I didn't understand the question, Josh.
The city and the FOP have mended fences over the statement that was the crux of why they suspended?
I don't know why the FOP was so sensitive or oversensitive on that. It was a factual statement. These were the negotiations that occurred. We had an agreement, and the city and the union agreed to reopen those negotiations and consider an adjustment. And that's what was being done. Anybody else? Yeah.
How do you think this will help safety?
Chief.
Well, I think this will enhance the efforts that we already have underway, and especially tackling some of the violence that we've seen recently that's concerning to us. Anything that we can do to help put more of a full court press to deal with those issues is going to help us in the long run. So I think it will have an impact, and I'm glad to see it.
Can you explain the benefit of people seeing more police cars?
Well, the omnipresence is what we try to do with that. That's what we get, I think, when officers are able to drive the cruisers when they're not at work. When officers are driving cruisers to the baseball park or to the mall or somewhere like that, it reduces the opportunity for criminals because they see police cars and they don't know who the police officers are. So it reduces those opportunities, and we believe that it will have an impact.
Do you think officers should have to pay to drive them around?
Well, I'm not going to get into the negotiations that are going on because that's an agreement with the city and the union. I'm the person who has to operationalize whatever agreements are made. I am happy that we're doing this. I think it will help.
Under what obligation an off-duty officer is driving a police car? What is his obligation as far as his job?
They do have obligations. Number one, if you're using your cruiser off-duty, you have to have an approved weapon in the car. You have to have the radio on and available to respond to a high-priority call that may be in close proximity. To the point of, if you have family members in the car, you may have to, and looking out for their safety, ask them to step out in a safe area while you respond and initially respond to what's going on.
All right. Anybody else? Any questions?
Do you have a
Josh?
specific goal as far as the reduction of violence that you're looking for?
Those are, obviously we're looking for a city that is safe, and our citizens, we're always hoping that we'll have a city where our citizens are comfortable. That's a city that we have had, and that's a city that we have today. The incidents that we've experienced, we know are unusual, but we also have to recognize that it creates anxiety and tension. And this is an intervention that is appropriate and is designed to address that. All right, I'll now sign. Yes, Josh.
Did you have any, is there any firm estimate now on how much money was saved over the last 2 years?
Well, it was roughly $280,000 per year.
Okay.
All right, and so those are the numbers in absolute dollars.
I was curious if any member of the council, there were some questions on Tuesday about the way the administration went about this. Do you have any comment on whether concerns about you doing this via executive order?
I didn't hear it. I couldn't hear you, Beth.
Well, there was concerns on Tuesday about the collective bargaining agreement, and what role does the council have, and whether you guys had to approve an amendment, et cetera. Do you have any concerns about this being done via executive order and with no approval by the council?
Well, I think what this executive order does, I certainly have learned not to speak on behalf of the council members. If any council member wishes to speak, happily. What this does, the effectiveness of this is to gain the police presence, gain the presence of the vehicles that would encourage higher awareness for public safety. And this is what my interpretation as administration, our interpretation was that that's what the council was encouraging. But if any council members wish to speak, that's fine.
Well, Beth, it's an appropriate step at this point, Beth, given it's a collective bargaining issue. So this is the only step that really could be taken at this point due to the issue being in collective bargaining 2 years ago.
Right. All right, so I'm going to sign this. So now we'll give you all a copy. All right. Thank you all very much.